Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic Us Non-Classics. This episode number 3526, Doubleshot number 3420. Yeah, we're here discussing for Superman issues 226 to, 223, 226, 228 to 231, 247, 251, and 51. Yeah, that's basically because basically I don't want to like more than what was having here. So in the case of the remaining issues we have, here for 223, 226, and 220, 231, these are the final issues released for Superman in the Silver Age. Yes. So for 231 is basically, well, Superman being threatened by girls from Kandor. Yeah, it's a really odd story. Supergirl. Yeah, and then we have Beware Super Genius Baby. Yeah, it's an Elseworld story. And this is an Elseworld story done by Robert Kanigher, the guy known for writing war stories. And it's set on Earth 224. Yeah, it's like, oh, Superman and Lois have a super baby who's a genius. And then we have a Superman possum, just basically a robot. Yeah. By the way, 224 is like Robert Kanigher. Kurt Swan does the amazing artwork here. So, later Duffman does issue 225. Now, why is 227 skipped? Reprint. In the case of 226, this is quite interesting, where Superman's King Kong. It's basically him fighting Titano again. Yeah. Old school villain. Later, once again, the cover story, yeah. Bob Haney, the backup story. The backup story is just him taking on some old people from the old American West. And skip 227 because it's a reprint story. Moving on to 228, of course. Yeah, this one in particular is, this one. This is the one where basically for 220 and 229, where Superman's powers get stripped from him. So gangsters, while he basically tries to fight them, they're like, hey, he doesn't have his powers. Let's strip him naked and ship him out to space. And then he ends up on an alien planet. We get his powers back. And also, Supergirl finds him, and he gets his costume back after getting an old school costume. Yeah, this lasts for a good couple issues. It's interesting at best. Yeah, it's basically like the anti-Superman gang. Yeah, this was a group of villains who debuted in the pages of Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. Yeah, and they're like recurring threats for Superman. This first time they appeared since issue 187. Yeah. They return again in basically 240, 241. Yeah. But of course, basically the story is wrapped up with 229. The ex-Superman stuff. So, and then we have a rare Krypton story, but don't worry, Superman stopped. 230, where it is a story where it's Killer Kent versus Luthor. It's an Elseworld story where this is something that debuted in 230, 231. It is basically, what if Lex Luthor was Superman and basically Clark Kent was a killer? Yeah, and this lasts for 2 issues. It's an odd concept. And then, like, it becomes very jarring after this because we have reprint story, which I'm not reviewing that one. And then it's like, we start the Sandman saga. Yeah, like right after this. Now, of course, basically, I didn't realize this, I had reviewed up to 246 already, so let's go straight to 247. because it's part of the whole DC Finance book. So then we have this very interesting one where we have a story featuring probably Clark Kent. Yeah, and then we have, well, basically in this book we have Galaxy Communications in this book. Well, as a quick cameo. Yeah, in the pages of the main Superman book, this was the, not the first time, however, but this is basically, like, the opening story is him teaming with the Guardians of the Universe, doing some alien threat, which is really interesting. Yeah. Then we have the part like Clark Kent. It's basically what Clark Kent does when he's not on the job. 248. By the way, the opening story by L.A.S. Migan. With the backup story done by the late Danny O'Neill. Then we have 248. The Man Who Murdered Earth. Yeah, and the first appearance of a character named the Galactic Golem. Yeah, it's a creature created by Lex Luthor, who didn't appear a lot, per se. No, the next appearance will not be until 258. He also gets every issue of Action Comics. Yeah, and it's all about Lex Luthor. The backup story is just focused on some Kryptonians. And then we have reprint. So, all in mind, that's by Mark Wolpin. 249. Basically, assuming taking on a Pegasus. By the way, the cover for this one is done by the late Neil Adams. Yep. This one has the first appearance of Terra Man. Yeah. Who, I remember this guy also appeared on Justice League. Tobias Manning. Yeah, he is. This is not. He appears in 240 and 250. It's a quick two-part story where he has to deal with them. And the backup story is the origin story of the Terra Man. Yeah, and then we kind of wrap up the story up with issue 250. Then moving on to 251, which we have a lot to discuss here. This is one where the alien robots, the opening story, and then another Kryptonian story, and that's it for Superman. Pretty interesting issues of what they are. Yeah, really interesting, and can't wait to discuss the rest. So next up is issue 200 and 361 of Action Comics. Yeah, Action Comics not going to discuss a lot per se, like I normally do. Yeah, we're discussing from 361. We're going to stop at 377 because basically there's a story starts 372, doesn't get wrapped up kind of until about 373. So 372, excuse me. So 361 is Return of the Parasite. Yep, he comes back in the story here to have another fight with Superman. And Jim should write this issue, which is awesome. And then we have the Hate of Hate, basically the Head of Hate, where we have a guy here who looks like some old. Yeah, this is a guy who appeared a couple times. He looks like some old school villain. Ventriloquist. Yeah. 363, where gets exposed to kryptonite. It's like leaping from Krypton. Yeah. So they basically wrap up that story here in pretty much basically just a quick two-parter. Yeah, I think what Action Comics says they love their two-parters. And then we have Untouchable Kryptonite. They got Untouchable Man Metropolis. Yeah, where Luthor looks like he's working with some phantom criminals to infect Superman with Virus X. And the story that starts in 264 wraps up in 265. and thanks to help with the Justice League. He basically is able to beat no problem. And then we have Substitute Superman, where actually it's a continuation of that. So, but basically everything is fine. Then we have Mystery of the Superman Awards, where it's basically it's like it's an Otto Bender story where it's basically just Superman going to an award show. 268 Unemployed Superman. Yeah, it's a story possibly where we're mixing everybody to basically think all the criminals reformed. Then we have 369, which is basically him fighting off against this criminal named King Torque. 370, by the way, 370, because I just finished reading it today. This was the last issue that I had never before in Action Comics from 300s, because at that point, because I pretty much kind of read all the rest, kind of with Action Comics, but yeah, from this point forward, basically. So, we have Superman going, also a little dream sequence, this one. And then we have 371, where Superman basically is kind of posing as the president. So, basically, the whole thing with 371, this begins a storyline that lasts for 7 straight issues. Well, skipping 373, but it's a multi-part story arc where Superman has amnesia, and then he gets amnesia 371, and next issue he becomes a wrestler. You're like, wait, what? Yeah, he becomes a wrestler. He has no idea who the heck he is. And this way it's called he forgot his code to kill. He doesn't really kill anybody. And then we have the guy who gave Superman, amnesia. He's posing as Clark Kent. And basically kind of becomes where he's think he's like a stunt man. And but we have Neil Adams with an amazing cover art here. It's a really gripping story where Superman basically is trying his best. So and they kind of wrap up the story with 375-ish. They kind of imply the whole stunt stuff with these 377, 378. 376, 378. So, 376 is noteworthy for being, get this, the final issue of Action Comics to feature a Supergirl feature. Yep, the long-range feature that Supergirl had in this book since 252. Yeah, since 252, which she's had a feature in this book since then. Yeah, so from March of 1979 up until May of 1969, it's basically a period of 10 years. So after 10 years of Supergirl half feature in the book, DC thought it would be a good idea to have her feature and Legion superheroes swap books. So basically, Legion is basically pick a feature from this point forward for a little while. If you're curious, when does the Legion feature wrap up? The Legion feature itself does not officially wrap up until issue 392. You're like, really? Yeah, really. That's officially, it wraps up. Oh yeah, so basically the whole thing is the Superman gang is basically trying to infect it with kryptonite. And he kind of gets chopped kryptonite and basically gets wrapped up basically in the next story. And they had to try to kill him 4 times. One guy tries to use a bullet with a matter transmitter. Try to madden Superman with Super Siren. Try to strangle Superman by shrinking his indestructible costume. Yes. Giant Killer Jones put kryptonite ring around Earth. Ken kept his lead changing ring. Transformers lead shitting would be turned to glass. But yeah, the story is wrapped up really quickly. And Will this be the last time they feature in Superman? Well, in the case of Superman, they basically have their time in 341 for Action Comics. This would be the last time they feature in Action Comics. Yeah, this would be the last time. They would never hear in the book ever again. Nope, never will. So at this point, I have pretty much covered their entire time in Action Comics. For Superman, I've already covered all the stories that one. But I haven't covered all the stories just yet, but yeah. I gotta say, these Action Comic issues were really good. Yeah, unlike in the case of Superman, with mostly, a lot of the time, mostly standalone issues. Very rarely it's two-parter. But Action Comics, yeah, it's very common. I was planning on doing 392 a little bit too much for me, so I said I stop at 377 instead, which is roughly about 16 issues. Because, of course, skipping 373 because it was a reprint. Yep. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, to notifications. Well, next up we have is going to be, well, hell mode. Okay? Next video. Bye.